You're still live on New Day here on TV3. It's time for Big Issue now. Joining me in the studio for the discussion this morning, I have with me Issa Atais, the MP for Sanerugu. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I mean, yesterday Parliament was in the news. I mean, a very unfortunate incident. You couldn't have proceedings yesterday.
Yes.
I don't know whether you had quite a close interaction with Kumi so far in the last 6 months since you joined Parliament.
Okay, so let me say good morning to you and to my senior and to the viewing public. He's a first-timer like myself, and we have a caucus called the Backbenchers Caucus that indicates that any member who is a first-timer or a second-timer is classified as a backbencher. So from that end, I have developed a close relationship with some of the MPs from the MPP side. Kumi and Kabiru and other MPs are so close to some of us because we interact a lot to see how best we can shape our own future in Parliament. So I think that we have lost an inspiring and a promising leader. The last time I saw him was on Tuesday last week. And there was no indication that something like this can happen. And what it only tells us is that this world is not permanent. It's a transient world, and you will surely return to your maker. Irrespective of the method and means that you go, it doesn't matter. When God created us, there was no consultation. So when he's taking any of the sons and daughters of this earth, equally, he doesn't consult anybody. If he had consulted, I'm sure we would have pleaded for clemency. But he, in his supreme wisdom, knows when and how to take any soul. And in Islam, we believe that every soul shall have the taste of death. So this is a sad moment for us, especially looking at the stress that he went through. Because this gentleman came to Parliament from a constituency who has its resource challenged. In fact, on the day of the inauguration, that was on the midnight of 7th, there was this issue of an injunction, and he had to take a collective decision for his party because the clerk had asked him, will you be ready to bear the full consequences of this action? And he was in affirmative with the minority leader then. So that tells you that he was very vociferous and assertive with his beliefs. And I think that MPP has lost a great soul. And the entire Parliament, yesterday, we couldn't just continue because it could have been any one of us. I'm told, is a heart attack or something, or cardiac arrest. That's the information that we are getting. So what it tells also is that we must learn to distress this entire job that we are doing to make sure that you are always examined to be medically fit for purpose. So I wish him a better eternal rest, and the family, may they be comforted by the grace of the Almighty, so that the loss does not become a burden. And to the MPP too, like I said, it's a sad moment for them, and I wish that they pass through this storm. That's what I would say.
I mean, also joining me in the studio, Dr. Josiah Koba is a former principal lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, and regular on Tuesdays as well. Doc, it's good to see you once again.
Oh, thank you. And good to have you back.
Thank you very much, Doc.
Yes. Let me first say hello and good morning to the good people of the Commander traditional area. Just came back yesterday after a weekend of funerals. I think sometimes we all forget that Ghana is not Accra. And so the good people of Commander traditional area and KEA generally, good morning. Joseph, you know, yesterday when I heard about this young man's death, you know, I was very saddened. You know, the first thing that I said to the friend who told me we were traveling back to Accra, I said, that young man, because he's one person, I think, that who leaves a mark, you know, after you've heard him. I've never met him, and But this morning I was listening to a presentation by the minority leader. And being an academic teacher, you can't help but admire him. I understand that he, at that age, he has bagged 3 master's degrees. And if you look at all that...
In fact, he just finished his professional law course. He just finished writing his last exams, just last 2 weeks.
If you look at all that, and I remember my own career, and you see that he combined all that with, the Akotia seat and all the problems that were associated with the seat, the court case, and he is a gem, and I think that we've lost a gem. This is one person probably, if God permitted, it would have been one gem, one serious parliamentarian that this country could have, relied upon for good achievement in Parliament. But as my brother said, God knows best, and he's been taken away. For those of us who are left here, we need to cherish life, live every day. In my view, the way I see it, live every day with a purpose. Because when this happens, I think all of us want to be remembered for the mark that we made. So we should live life with a purpose and try and see if we can make this world a better place while we're here. Our condolences go to the family, to I'm sure he has young children, and that's what, and we want to console them and assure them that God knows best, and things will be all right. It will be all right.
Yeah. I mean, I shared a bit of my interaction with him earlier. I actually met him earlier in the year. I mean, very, very calm gentleman. He's very easy to talk to. I mean, he's one of those individuals that when you see and you talk to him, that's it. Like, you just meet him and he recognizes you, and it's very easy to just talk to him. And we just had that interaction over and over. And every time I just run into him, he would just say, "Don't say what you always say to me," because I was always taking him on that this is court issues. He may be landing trouble. And he told me that, Charlie, the lawyers have told him the same thing, but they are going to weather through it. And so whenever he saw me, he said, "No trouble, no trouble." And we all laughed about it. Very calm, very friendly gentleman. Very unfortunate story there. We understand he was supposed to undertake a major activity that morning, and he was preparing the previous night. And our condolences to the family. May the good Lord strengthen them in this time of such a devastating loss. God knows best, as we always say. But, I mean, the lesson always is that we're on borrowed time, and we can only live to the best of our abilities every other day. Now, away from this particular issue, let's delve into the main issues now. And a bit of a story that broke somewhere last night has to do with issues surrounding the Ablekuma North constituency. As you are aware, the Electoral Commission is supposed to organize a rerun in 19 polling stations on Friday between the NPP and the NDC. We know that they are the two main political parties. For those who know Ablekuma North very well, I mean, it's one of those seats that typically the NPP wins, but this time around it appears to be very close, and the closeness is in the fact that the election itself was marred and in a lot of controversy. At the end of this, after December 7 elections, we couldn't even determine who had won. The matter went all the way through the courts. Initially, the EC actually declared the NDC's candidate as the winner. The headquarters set that declaration aside. The matter went over to the High Court. The High Court gave an order for the EC to complete the collation. It went over to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said that, look, the High Court did not give the NDC candidates a hearing at that particular level, so the matter had to go back to the High Court. Then the High Court again gave an order for that particular coalition to go on, and it's that order that the NPP makes reference to. And so the NPP's Nana Ekuo Uswefri has taken the matter to the High Court. He's asking the High Court to restrain the EC from running the Ablekuma North post in the 19 polling stations on Friday. And she makes the point that on 4th July 2025, the EC was ordered to complete the collation in the 62 polling stations that the EC had said were outstanding. And that 17th January 2025, the EC in a press release indicated that 3 stations were outstanding. Note the number 3 were outstanding. Now, on 11th June 2025, the EC writes to the MPP saying that 3 stations are still outstanding. You recall on 19th June specifically, the commissioners were in Parliament, and the Deputy Commissioner, Dr. Eric Bosman-Asare, did state that they did not intend to reorganize the elections there because they've not completed their process. And so the MPP candidate makes reference to that and say that even at 19th June, the EC was still clear in its mind that was not going to reorganize the elections because it had to complete the coalition system. And to the extent that at every point they had made reference to 3 constituencies being outstanding, they now find it surprising that on 2nd July, the commission will now in a press release indicate that it's going to rerun the polls in 19 stations. And that statement that was issued by the Electoral Commission gives some interesting insights. The commission said that in the interaction it's had with the political parties, the NDC had wanted the rerun to be done in 37 polling stations because they had concerns about the accuracy. They couldn't authenticate those results independently. And so because the commission also did not have access to those sheets, they felt that the elections should be organized in all 37 polling stations. But eventually the EC has decided that it's going to rerun it in the 19 stations, and the NPP is asking the court not to allow this to happen. And I want to start this conversation with Doc first on this particular subject matter. The people of Ablekuma North, December 7, like many of us, they went to vote. Today is 8th July. They do not have a member of parliament.
Well, it is sad. I personally, I'm very disappointed with the Electoral Commission. I think this particular commissioner, I think, came on board with a lot of promise, especially given her background working with, is it IEA?
Yeah.
You know, on election-related matters.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's been just one roller coaster of disappointment after disappointment. You know, of course, you know, in the past, it was about minority and majority, and still it is about minority and majority. It looks like whichever side she goes to, the other side is not satisfied. Mm-hmm. So you wonder, how did Afarijan and the rest of them manage? You know, it is very disappointing. You know, my understanding is that these 19 constituency and these
polling
19
stations.
Polling stations are stations where the presiding officer has not been able to verify the signatures on the pink sheet, and that is, I understand, what led to this decision to run the election in the 19 stations. Having said that, I think one cannot necessarily take away the right of a candidate to go to court and challenge that, especially given the background of the court order that she is relying on. It's important to note the independence that the Constitution grants the Electoral Commission. And in the past, some of us have seen that some of us thought that it has been abused. You know, for example, having people travel miles to the district office to register. We thought they were abusing their independence because they would not listen to anyone. And it's several times where it is our way or no way. But we are a democracy. The lady is in court. and we see what happens. I know that the elections are supposed to be on Friday, and I'm not sure. Well, I understand that there's no fixed date yet.
Yes, the date is yet to be fixed for the action they filed.
Maybe we will know the date by today, or by the end of the day. But it's a right to go to court, and I hope that we get this resolved one way or the other. Because what we have is a standoff. Eventually, the court itself has said that elections are won at the polling station. So I think it is fair to return the process back to the polling station and see where we go with this. I don't know the details of the lawsuit, and really, since it's in court, one is enjoined to be careful about one's commentary on the process. And so let's wait and see. That's all I can say.
Let me come to you. Issa, your party, clearly you are satisfied with the 19 rerun that is taking place now. But the point that the NPP makes, which many will find very worrying, is the fact that the commission has, at every turn, indicated quite clearly that it had to complete the coalition. And at the last update, even in Parliament, they said that, well, there were 3 outstanding stations. Now, how come they are now going to do 19? And there are those who make the point that the conditions are simply not the same, in that if you are going to vote today, the way people may vote will be different from if they were voting for you as they did in Sanerugu back in December of 2024. Okay,
so let me begin this way. I think now there is some level of convergence between the NPP and the NDC in terms of the competence level of the commission. We have all now come to realize that the Electoral Commission have taken Ghanaians for granted. Look, the survival of our democracy rests with the Electoral Commission, even more than the courts, because oftentimes change of leadership or elections have led to civil wars in many countries and even military takeovers because of consequences of bad elections. And several courts have always made it known that the threshold for delivering justice in an election petition is to maintain peace. Let's take the journey with this Electoral Commission. There was already a precedent on this of citizens of this country without representation. This is not the first time. You remember in 2020, a day to the election, they had brought a press release indicating that the people of SAL can no longer vote and have a representative in Parliament. And this was done for 4 good years for the people of SAL. And up till now, there is no punishment for this ill decision that they took, or the poor decision that they took. Now, coming back to Ablekuma North, I think that we can agree that despite the incompetence delivered by the Electoral Commission, we can all agree that it's a win-win situation for us. Because as a party, we had done our own coalition, and we knew that we had won the election. Like you rightly said, even your studio or your station, you had representative at the coalition center. Madam Evelyn was legitimately declared by the presiding officer. However, the law permits for people to disagree with the election results declared by the Electoral Commission. And so I don't have any problem with that. Once the Constitution has granted them that right, I don't have a problem with that. But subsequent to that, the EC agreed with the MPP to do a coalition because the head office has set aside the declaration made by the presiding officer. Then they started springing some scanned copies of pig sheets. It also demonstrates the lack of capacity of the commissioners because you are the examiner. Let's take it like you are conducting an exams. You finish the exam, students wrote the exam, submitted the results to you. You don't have the original copy of the results, yet political parties are sending you scanned copies. That is lack of capacity. So I'm saying that So when the MPP started bringing us copies of scanned pink sheets, we could authenticate some and disagree with many. That was how come we said we were only accepting minus 37 polling stations. The Electoral Commission did not heed to our counsel and advice. And we had told them that if this is not handled properly, it can lead to chaos. And if you remember, the reason for them not completing the collation exercise was a result of security issues. That all they need is the security provision by the Interior Ministry, isn't it? So that is the consequence of organizing a poor election. So for me, this is a win-win situation for even the MPP. Because initially, the NDC was demanding about 60-plus police stations to be struck out. We narrowed it down to our 37. You wanted 3, now it's set at 19. I agree with you that circumstances may differ in terms of the period. Yeah. I agree.
Because, I mean, it potentially changes
the dynamics.
Yes. And I mean, I was having a discussion with someone, and I mean, for those of you who may have studied a bit of psychology and everything, I mean, voter psychology.
Yes.
I mean, even the performance of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama in the last 6 months,
yes,
all of that potentially weighs in on the mind of the voter who walks into the box, as against that time when he's going to vote, when the factors were completely different.
Yes. So, but you see, let's assume that voters are rational. If you look at the freedom concept of elections, sometimes voters take decisions as at a particular moment due to various economic reasons and other reasons that you are talking about. But my point is that just oppose that with the alternative. The alternative is chaos. Is that what we want? The democracy of this country should not be jeopardized because of Ablekuma North alone. So if a free platform or a fair platform has been created in 19 polling stations, political parties have been given representative or the right of their representative to monitor the entire process in terms of printing of ballot papers, transport of ballot papers, and even election monitoring. And the conduct of the election is done transparently and clearly. I don't think it should call for anything. Okay. I trust that the MPP, their candidate, since the issue might have been so close with the people, our candidate, who I know, has already even started moving because of the set date. So whoever is closer to the people wins. But I'm worried about the public trust and credibility to the Electoral Commission. That is why I'm part of the group that says that there must be that level of easy accountability.
I mean, how do you respond to those? And I'll let you make that point I mean, in a bit. But how do you respond to those who blame you, the political parties? I mean, they make the point that now you've shifted the whole fight to the coalition centers. I mean, we saw it at Ablekuma North. I remember Okaikwe, the coalition was completely scattered. The same thing at Nsaoma Dwejiri. And they say that it is you, the parties, that have made it nearly impossible. At Okaikwe, for instance, our reporter had videos of the sheets and everything that were being collated completely vandalized, destroyed. They were kicking it around. It was like watching a primary school activity. And they make the point that how then do you blame the EC when now your supporters, they destroy everything and the EC does not even have access to sheets?
So you see, to understand this issue, you need to, like I have gone through an election, you need to understand the genesis that led to this conclusion. In 2020, in fact, in 2013 petition, the Electoral Commission told us that elections are won. The Supreme Court judges told us that the elections are won at what? The polling stations. So we took the matter to the polling stations. However, if an election is over, the polling station results are collated in one tally sheet. You, the political party individual polling sheets, does not constitute any legal basis. It is that of the Electoral Commission. So that is where voter manipulation happens at the collation center. In fact, in one of my polling stations in Sanargo, though we largely voted for NDC, I had about 443 votes as against my opponent who had 86. They gave me 386 votes instead of 436 votes. So if you leave the collation to be done by the Electoral Commission, that is the fate you suffer. You saw what happened in Techiman South in 2020.
Yeah.
When we realized that there was that level of voter manipulation and transpositional errors, members of the party besieged the place to ensure confidence in the system. What did we see? We lost about 8 people. So this provided the background as to why you saw massing up at coalition centers. So we had now taken the fight from polling stations, follow it up to the ladder to the coalition center. It doesn't even end there. From the coalition center, a set of teams will also move it to the regional coalition center, and then there's another team at the national. So there's always a level of cross-checking and making sure that we are satisfied with any outcome that comes. And look, let me tell you this. Once processes are fair and transparent, people are easily, they accept the outcomes. But once they suspect some flaws and manipulations, you will never get a favorable outcome. Okay. So now I was building a point on public trust.
Yes.
Look, President Akufo-Addo did wrong to this country. He committed a cardinal sin on our democracy. We thought initially that electoral commissioners over the world are independent constitutional bodies that guarantees the participation of citizens through a civic duty. So you must create that level of independence for them to do their job dispassionately. President Akufo-Addo came and set that standard, that whoever appoints an electoral commissioner, the commissioners owe that allegiance and duty to serve the appointing authorities. We didn't know that. And that is how come when Dr. Farijan was appointed, he saw it through all transitions. President Rawlings, President Mills, President Kufuor, all worked with the electoral commissioner. What did we see during the time of Madam Charlotte Osei? In that case, Madam Charlotte Osei had declared election results in favor of the MPP. But with this notion that they must get her out because the person was appointed by President Mahama. That set this bad precedent on always ever winning decline in public confidence and trust in the Electoral Commission. So for me, Jean Mensah has, we all know some of the mistakes that she did in the 2020 and the 2024 elections. And the Supreme Court aiding her to abscond from accountability when she could have resolved some of these issues that were, if she had entered the witness box. So these issues that we are bringing could have been addressed by in 2024. But she absconded. So for me, I'm one of the people that is of the view that the commissioners, some of them, we need to take a real look at them, whether they are fit for purpose moving into the 2028 elections.
Let me bring into the conversation Nana Yao Sapon, a regular on the Tuesday belt as well. Nana, it's good to have you join us once again.
Good to see you. How did it go?
Very well. God is good, and God is good, and we are back. And Nana, I want to start off the conversation with where Issa left off about the competence and the credibility issues surrounding the Electoral Commission. And Nana, he makes the point about the Commission not having access to its own sheets. I mean, at least we know that for Ablekuma South, what took place beyond Ablekuma North, what beyond the chaos and everything. You recall shortly after the election, there's a structure, a school building that they were keeping some of the sheets. The building was actually attacked and it was set ablaze, and the people actually took out the boxes and they burnt it. I mean, there are those who put all this together and say that, well, you can blame the EC to an extent, but there's also a clear attempt, one way or the other, to ensure that mandate or that expression of the will of the people in those boxes never saw the light of the day.
Thank you very much, my brother, and good morning to you, Doug and Issa. You know, Issa is my MP. He's the MP for the only city in Tamale, Sanargo. I attended Tamale Secondary School.
I know a number of his colleagues who disagree with you.
Yes, that he didn't attend a good school. He attended B school. And, after attending Bisco, he decided to come to the city to become an MP. You know? Yes. And so he's my MP, and I would want to add my voice to the masses and the good people of Ghana to extend our condolences to the wife and family of Ernest Kumi. It's unfortunate. You know, yesterday was not a good one. It is our prayer that his soul would rest in peace. And I think that one way or the other, we would also have to take certain lessons from what had happened. If you listen to the story, it means that over the night, he was actually preparing for some major functions. And I mean, life is not yours. And so when you have been given the opportunity to leave, you should leave it well. He didn't know he was going to go. Probably if he did, he would have had a good time with the wife and the children and probably left some good messages, but only to wake up and to go through this ordeal. We wish the wife well, and the children, we wish them well. The Supreme God knows best. So having said that, Ablekuma North, brother, I think that prior to election 2024, I had stated categorically that I had trust issues when it comes to the Electoral Commission. I had said that I did not trust the three people who were managing the Electoral Commission. I had stated it, and it's public knowledge. I didn't trust what Madam was doing. I didn't trust what Bossman was doing. I didn't trust Tete. I had serious trust issues. And that is because I had the opportunity to be part of IPAC. I had the opportunity to sit in meetings and to make contributions. And you look and listen to how they respond to issues when you are in the meetings, and how they come out when the cameras are on them to also respond to issues. And then you would ask yourself, are these the same people that you are seated with? I remember one of the banter we had with them actually had to do with even the taking down of minutes. As we speak, if you go to ask them if they were even minutes to IPAC, they can't produce it. All right. And I remember when we had pushed them to the wall, they told us that IPAC was only an advisory committee, and that our suggestions and decisions that were taken at IPAC were not binding. Of course, it wouldn't bind. And if it wouldn't bind on you, this is where we would find ourselves, because that was the table at which decisions were supposed to be taken, that would have the interest of all political parties and would have the interest of all representatives of independent presidential candidates who had been given mandate by their bosses to come and sit there. And so if you make such commentary, you do not expect us to trust you. Elections are a process. And the process here was being backed by law, a constitutional instrument. I think CI 127, CI 126 and CI 127, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember very well that there was no new CI that was introduced for the 2024 elections. We actually used the same CI that was used for the 2020 elections. And so if we had hit some blocks during the 2020 elections using the same CI in 2024, we should have learned some lessons. We should have learned how to go about it to resolve those issues. So personally, I think that they didn't do a good job. I mean, they were much interested in the external public image that they were going to get. All right, they were much interested in the external public image than the fulfillment of their constitutional mandate. You understand me? And so they would always come out on the screens, on the cameras, looking all so good, as if everything was very fine. But if you did ask the political parties, the small political parties and the reps of the independent presidential candidates, they will tell you that the EC didn't do well. Okay, but I mean, this is where we find ourselves. Secondly, I would want to take the ball also to the doorstep of the election security providers, the police service. That time that was led by Dan Parry. I remember very well when we had met at the police headquarters. We think we met 2 or 3 occasions. Some critical issues were raised. You understand me? And the assurances were given. I remember some even raised issues that had to do with where the coalitions were going to be done and how to have access to the coalition centers. And some of us were clear in our language that there was the need for us to have a clear procedure. We told them, listen, you have very beautiful strategy on paper, but you know some strategies are only good on paper, but they are not implementable. You understand me? Now, you would have Ablekuma North. Before the end of the polls, everybody, every stakeholder that had Ablekuma North in mind knew that there was contention.
Yeah.
So how do you keep the evidence, the primary documents that you would need to deal with the contention in a space that is accessible to people? How are you able to do that without providing maximum security? Of course, they have their own definition for maximum security. But, my brother, we learn from experiences. There was contention. Everybody is aware there was contention before the end of polls.
Yeah.
Then you go to keep the primary evidence in a space that is accessible to foot soldiers, that you do not provide that level of security. What was wrong, or what would have been wrong if they had come together to carry these documents they needed and the ballot boxes whatsoever they had needed to what's the name, the armory or somewhere that the civilian, the ordinary civilian, would not have access to. Sometimes we need to take certain things serious. It was as though, I mean, nothing is going to happen. But there was tension. There was tension. There was so much tension that you needed to actually take care. Are you not surprised that you would tell me that the EC that is supposed to be the primary caretaker of our coalition sheets and all of that would tell Ghanaians that they do not have copies? Now, at the end of the polls, the ones at the police stations, what are their names? The presiding officers. They are supposed to take a digital copy of the hard copy they are holding and send it
to the regional
the coalition, the officer who is in charge of the coalition. No, the one in charge of the polling stations is
the presiding
officer. Someone else. So they are supposed to take copies and send it to the presiding officers and also to the regional centers. So are they telling us that with these polling stations, the presiding officers did not take copies of the pink sheets?
That's what they're saying.
There was a clear procedure. Are they telling us they did not orient their presiding officers? I remember very well that at one of the meetings, I had a banter with Obi Amor over the procedures in the CI, even in the selections of the presiding officers and the returning officers whatsoever. I remember the banter we had, and they were trying to have an interpretation of the black and white that was in front of us. Their own interpretation. We went back and forth of it. Because there was a clear procedure even how to go about the appointments. And they introducing some assistants and other things, and we questioned the constitutionality of those appointments. But yet, they decided to go ahead. And this is where we find ourselves. And I keep saying that even Afarijan, who is the brain behind Ghana's electoral processes, I stand to be corrected. But growing up, we knew election was Afarijan, and Afarijan was election. He does not sit to just take unilateral decisions. What is the essence of having an IPAC if you would not adhere or put into action their recommendations and suggestions? Why waste people's time to go and sit to discuss?
Okay.
To discuss what?
Okay.
You understand? Yeah. So, personally, I think that the Electoral Commission should bow their head in shame. We saw what happened to the people of Guan, am I right? Mm-hmm. For 4 solid years, they didn't have a representation. Did we not learn from those days? Now, if we are not able to go through these 19 polling stations, it means that at the end of this year, the people of Ablekuma North would be without a representation. Is that not an infringement on their rights? Constitutional rights, unless otherwise I'm wrong. I'm not a lawyer. So sometimes when we are taking decisions, we should listen.
Okay.
We should ensure that what the work we have done and we have documented, we go by those procedures. As for the political propaganda to go on, we have stated that the 3 of them should go. They should all be removed if indeed Ghana wants to have a truly fair electoral process.
Okay.
And this is my own opinion.
Okay.
If Ghana wants to have a truly fair electoral process, they would say that we are having a fair electoral process. But is it indeed fair? Or it becomes fair depending on who is seated on the table?
Okay.
Because yesterday, Isa and his group were not in support of the Electoral Commission. Today, they are in support of decisions by the Electoral Commission. Yesterday, even if the Electoral Commissioner did cough, the MPP would go and brief and say, this one can heal viruses. Today, they are calling for their head. The only thing we cannot touch is the processes we have in our CI. And the only thing we can't touch is the mandate of the Ghanaians. In elections, I remember Paul Awuntemi Afoko, when he was seeking for national chairman, he made a statement some time back, and then before I got to read that book, it says that those who vote, they vote. And those who count, they indeed count.
Okay. And Doc, just to pick off something that Nana said, I mean, right now where we find ourselves, how do we proceed here? I mean, we may have to leave it down to the courts to decide the matter, because you have the MPP, they clearly, they do not intend to follow through with their 19. I mean, they don't want that to happen at all.
Well, I believe in the capability of the courts to sift through all this and give us a judgment that we can live with. Yeah. Remember that EC was ordered to go and do something. In trying to do what they were ordered to do, they're telling us they encountered problems. And what they have now is their solution to that problem that they had. I think they should just go and present that to the court. And the court, in its wisdom will, make a decision for us. But I wanted to say one thing. You see, we have an EC commissioners who are very obsessed with their independence. Okay, what they forget is that the independence, you should use the independence competently.
Exactly.
A lot of incompetence. When you have an electoral commissioner and her colleagues sitting in front of us and lamenting over lack of security. So what's your independence for? If you can't manage your security, what's your independence for when your presiding officers don't have original copies of documents? I understand that the tally sheet or what is it? A copy is supposed to be posted
at every police station.
At the police station.
Yes.
It didn't happen in so many stations. Then you want to come and sit in front of us and tell us about your competence? Please. I think that Ghanaians have seen what has happened. I do have serious trust issues. And then I was talking about, serious issues of trust. And at the bottom of it, bottom line, incompetence, serious incompetence, and we should learn to call a spade a spade. Both sides of the political divide, can see incompetence, And as for the court case, this recent one, I think let the process work out, and I think that we will, the judge, whoever is sitting, on the case, recognizes that at the end of the day, they will still have to deal with the people at the polling centers. We are, Ghanaians have learned the lesson that the Supreme Court taught us, that elections are won or lost at the polling station, and they will not sit by now, as I see it, and allow anybody to use a so-called independence to manipulate anything.
Process.
Yeah,
Okay.
and whatever happens in court, Ghanaians will speak their voice.
Okay.
Let me just say one. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Just a quick one.
Yeah, sure.
Mostly, I don't put to public my chats with individuals. On the 3rd of December, they were supposed to have given to us accreditations to the coalition centers. I had been making calls to the Electoral Commission since morning. Nobody seemed to be responding to my call. So I sent one of the commissioners a WhatsApp. He didn't respond. I kept calling. Then he told me, as at 12:23 noon, he said he was in a meeting. I said, okay, please, this has to do with accreditation for our coalition centers. We want to dispatch ours. Your stores is telling us we were allocated just 100 accreditation cards. What happens to the rest of the constituencies? This was my question I posed. And I said, today is Wednesday, and we have very limited time to get things to our people. He replied in short. He says, I will inform the team in charge. Then I replied. I said, I have been making calls since morning, and no one seems to want to take responsibility of that. An independent presidential candidate, not a parliamentary candidate, presidential, whose picture is across all the 276 constituencies. And for that matter, if not for anything, should have a representative in all the constituency coalition centers. You would allocate 100 cards, meaning 100 constituencies.
Out of 276.
Out of shoes. That if it is one rep.
Two.
And almost all the smaller parties say. So I asked, what happens to the rest? And you see, they passed a very sarcastic comment. Na mubenya nipa momako. I went around this nation, throughout all the districts, got people to endorse the candidacy or the candidature of the person on the ballot paper. And you would ask me if I would get representatives for the... Now, if I won't get representatives, would I have come to contest the elections?
I mean, it's in wrapping up for me on this. I mean, as far as you are concerned, you are just looking up to Friday.
Yeah. So for us, we have started engaging the people. That's what I just wanted to say. That pending the outcome of any legal issue or the court decision, we must forge ahead to making sure that we secure the legitimacy from the people. From day one, we knew we had won the elections, and we must do everything to confirm that assertion, so that the total tally will come to about 188. And look, it is better for the MPP to also start engaging, because this issue doesn't bother them much. What rather bothers them is flag bearers elections. So this is some of the misplaced priorities. This one is current. For proper representation in Parliament, the good people of Ablekuma North, your interest is who leads your party for 2028 elections. That is their interest. So for me, every NDC executive in Ablekuma North should rise to the occasion. We will be supporting them every day. In fact, all MPs will be moving there shortly to make sure that we support our colleague. We miss their representation, and our parliament is not complete without the Ablekuma North. In fact, the total number of constituencies that was gazetted was 276 constituencies. As we speak, we have only 275 who represents the voices of the people over there. So for that reason, it is even in the interest of the MPP to also make sure that we do a very clean, fair elections. I am always for fair elections. I don't care. I don't even need the support of the Electoral Commission to win any election, because they do not vote. The people that vote, the mandate that we are seeking for, is from the people. So why should I trust in the Electoral Commission to change results for me or not? And I agree that this constitutional review process that is currently ongoing, one of the conversations that I want to be had is the issue of selection of some of these institutions. Because this loyalty and, how do I call it, based on the one who appoints you, there's that tendency that you may drift towards them, especially...
I think Nana, and even you earlier, I think you both made a point. I mean, I think it's the interference that
is the problem.
Has fed the perception, because generally, either ways, the person would have continued anyways. I mean, that was what we were accustomed to in times past. If you look into
our great transformational plan, we had stated the amendment of these articles of the appointment that deals with the appointments of constitutional independent bodies.
Yes.
You understand? We actually, the review committee ought to look at it, including state security.
Okay.
Because look, we may not, one day, if we don't take our time, we cannot contain the fallouts from some of these decisions. So that's what I'm saying.
So Chairman Afoko just corrected me. He says that those who vote don't count. Those who count, count.
those who vote don't count. Those who count. Interesting. So that is it by way of our discussion surrounding the issues relating to Ablekuma North. The election is supposed to take place on July 11. We don't know whether it will take place this Friday, actually.
It has to.
This Friday. We don't know whether it will take place or not. Whether... Okay, as far as we are aware, it's taking place on Friday, unless something comes up from the courts. We don't know when the hearing will take place, but the expectation by the NPP is that it takes place before Friday, at least, so they'll have some clarity on what would happen. We can now move on to the second issue surrounding the arrest of the former Buffer Stock CEO, Abdul Wahab Hanan, who we understand is still in custody. He was actually arrested on June 25. He was arrested together with his wife. Was granted a 60 million cedi bail by the Economic and Organized Crime Office. The wife was granted bail in a sum of 30 million cedis. She has been able to meet those conditions, and we understand, is home, but he is still in the custody of the police. And already we've seen in the last couple of days, actually, members of the New Patriotic Party pitch camp at the Economic and Organized Crime Office, demand his release. We actually understand yesterday they were supposed to organize a march from Parliament to the Economic and Organized Crime Office just before the unfortunate news surrounding the death of Ernest Kumi broke, and that resulted in their abandoning that particular desire. And already this particular matter is raising some concerns within the legal fraternity about how the Economic and Organized Crime Office is fixing bail terms and all those issues surrounding that. And I want to start with Doc on this matter for obvious reasons. I mean, Doc, we have the CEO is arrested, granted bail in a sum of 60 million cedis. We understand that the conditions they are fixing, they ask them to justify it. That is how come it's proving very difficult for them to meet it. And you look at the former Signals Bureau boss, he was granted bail by Yoko in a sum of 120 million cedis. He had to eventually go to the court. The court reviewed it downwards to 80 million cedis before he was able to meet the conditions. We also know that of Bernard Ntribu Chairman Wontumi. They also fixed it at 50 million cedis. It took a while before they were able to meet those conditions, and they have him go. I mean, there are those who are already saying that it appears the Economic and Organized Crime Office is more or less being heavy-handed in terms of how it is fixing those conditions, and they are defeating the very purpose of the constitutional provision, which says that you either take the person to court or you release him either conditionally or unconditionally. In this instance, they are fixing conditions that they are unable to meet. There are those who also make the point that, well, they are investigators and they are looking at the nature of the crime involved, particularly because it is financial crimes. And they are looking at the quantum of the monies involved and thinking that if this individual is allowed to go, he may not show up. And so if we are fixing the conditions, they have to put someone has to put something on the table, which if they run away, then we can go after them. I don't know how you process and reconcile these two opposing views.
Joseph, we have a body that is empowered to investigate crimes against the nation, cause the arrest of citizens, grant bail, etc., etc., etc. If you're not satisfied with what they do, you go to court for review. It's been done. There is nothing in our laws that says MPs should march to Yoko and sit on the floor there for Iroko to change his mind about bail conditions. You can always go to court and have the bail conditions reviewed. From where I sit, I have no idea what Yoko knows about this gentleman and his wife. We have no idea. I can't sit here and second guess the Yoko staff on the reasons why they have set those bail sums. Now, the people who are saying that the bail conditions are onerous and all that, they might have a point. Again, the forum for addressing that are the courts, not here, not in Parliament with parliamentarians holding press conferences and marching to Yoko offices. That's not the place for that, So for me, it's very simple. We have an act that empowers Yoko to do what it's doing. If we're not satisfied with what they're doing, go to court. It's that simple. For me, that's what it is. I can't say much until I know personally what is it that they have found about the buffer stock boss and his wife. What are the details? I don't know. This is now in the bosom of Yoko, and they are making their decisions. And if I was the gentleman's brother or his father or his attorney, all I would say, what I know is that the Constitution allows you, the laws of this country, to go to court and have the bail conditions reviewed. They could have done that. He was arrested on the 25th of June.
Yeah.
This is 8th July.
July, yeah.
I mean, there was enough time to get this dealt with. Let's take some of this political bantering out of this and then use the system. Because until we change the system, the law is that when Yoko sets a bail condition and you think it is unreasonable, you go to court. They should do that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you process this and the trend as well. I mean, it appears they are fixing huge sums. I mean, that's a fair point for anyone to look at and raise that. Yeah. There's definitely something that is happening there.
Yeah. Discussing an issue like this is a bit difficult for some of us because of the person involved. Despite our political differences, he's a brother and a friend. In fact, I met him at the airport. That was a month ago. So it is not out of any heat that I will discuss what I'm coming to say. You see, there is that level of equality before the law. I think that politicians must understand that once you are given a mandate of the people, you have to account for your stewardship. So I don't have any issue with any state agency inviting any public official to account on how they use their mandate. I don't have any problem. I am not one of those who believe that there's something called witch hunting, because I always believe that when there are witches, they must be haunted. I'm that type of person. So I don't contain any type of illicit deals, corruption, and its alike. Any effort that government and state agencies must do to ensure that there is that value for money on all public dealings, that is what we should call for. So to that end, I don't think what Yoko has done is out of place. And I don't also want to sound a bit political, because the argument can be raised that similar moves were done by the previous administration on previous government appointees under the NDC first term of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. So to that end, they also don't see anything wrong with this. I don't want you to look at it from political lens. If you do, you set a bad precedent that you only wait when your party comes, then you hand over those who just left office. So to that end, I believe that the MPP must always live to their own standards. Why do I say so? We're all in this country where Dr. Puni and the likes were the way they were treated, even using the judicial manipulations. How public officials under the SY administration of John Dramani Mahama first term, you saw how they were treated. But that is not to say that we must mete out some of these things to them. But my point is that they must always live to their own standards. I don't want to have a feeling that they expect sense of reasonableness from the NDC only when we are in government. Once they are in government, they don't have any limitations. They can do anything. So, yes, I may agree with issues of the quantum. I think it's on a bit high for me. But the forum for addressing these bail conditions is not necessarily through the protests that they are doing. Doc has already said it. They can even apply a judicial review on the decision of the High Court, what they did, Yoko. Yoko, yeah. They can even apply for a judicial review on it. In fact, they can even apply for bail variations. You are the lawyers. Criminal Procedure Act, Section 96, talks about what is even the justification for this quantum. Look at the accusations: tax evasions, money laundering, and loss to the financial loss to the state. Look at the hefty. Each of them constitute a separate crime. So there is a tendency that the person might be a flight risk person, or the person may tamper with investigations. To that end, that calls for this quantum, so that anybody sticking his neck out to guarantee as a surety will make sure that the person is monitored. Because once the bail conditions are varied in the future, it is the sureties that they normally come after. So that is why they normally set it at that level, so that it is only people of responsibility that can guarantee a surety. To that end, I think that if it is within their means to get it, they must. But bail variations or judicial review is the best way to getting this issue reduced. Now, they chose protest. And this is not the first protest that we are seeing the minority do. I think this is the most active wing of the party currently that is doing something. All the other wings are dead. The only wing that is working for MPP now is the minority in parliament. And this is not new. Any political party that suffers a defeat, especially the magnitude that they did, normally goes into hibernation to reflect. So for that matter, I think that this is just a way to keep the media like we are doing this morning. If they have not done that, I'm not sure we would have discussed them. So it provides an opportunity for us to be talking about them regularly. So yes, it is within their right to protest, but I was looking at it from the viability of the options that you are choosing. Whether a mere protest is enough. And like you said, yesterday was a sad day for both of us in Parliament, from the NDC and the MPP minority, because of the passing of Ernest Kumi. So it stopped some of these things that they wanted to do. I wish my brother Hanan well, and he must be rest assured that there won't be anything called witch hunting or victimization once the allegations are not founded. I'm sure the enforcement agencies will set him free. And finally, let me look at this whole idea of financial loss to the state and all those things. Look, corruption is what kills African dream. And corruption doesn't have color. It doesn't have soul. It doesn't have party. The value for money is lacking in Africa. In fact, I read in a recent survey that was done by an international organization that suggested that Africa loses almost $1 trillion annually to corruption. We must not celebrate corrupt officials. We must allow law enforcement agencies and judicial systems to make sure that we protect the limited resources of this country. So I just want to say that the notion out there that Hanan was arrested and detained, people are using the issue of table number 2 that suggested that the person must not stay beyond 48 hours without being charged. But the critical point I want viewers to know is that the message that is carried out to you people is not entirely true, because they made the argument as if he has been denied bail. Meanwhile, we all know that the bail conditions that have been set has not been fulfilled. So if we don't segregate these issues like that, we jump into this public foyer and we do unnecessary politicization of the issues. My advice to the legal representative of Mr. Hanan is that they must apply for a judicial review or a bail variation, so that if they cannot afford this, I'm sure the courts will not be a bad place to go to get it set aside or reduced. To that end, that is the very brief I will say about it. Like I say, he's a brother.
I mean, and I don't know where you stand on on this particular matter. I mean, he makes the point, and it's a very curious thing we are seeing happen. If you compare this to the Chairman Wontumi situation as well, I mean, the lawyers seem very hesitant to go to court. They try and more or less, it's like there's some political capital to make out of the situation. And I mean, from 25th June till now, I mean, that's a long time.
I had tried to restrain myself from commenting on Hanan. As we all Tamale boys, and it's difficult when you have to make commentary on it. But I mean, the truth be told, it's Ghana we are dealing with, and for that matter, we would have no option but to push into the matters. Number one, Anan was arrested on the 25th of June. Today is the 8th of July. By my calculations, that is 14 days. When he was arrested, I think that, and I stand to be corrected, the minority caucus in Parliament would have been informed at least a day or two after. They would have realized that one of their own has been arrested by Iyoko and assisting in investigations. If you noticed how swiftly they responded when Wuntumi was arrested as compared to their response to that of Hanen, then we should be seeking some clarifications. That why were they so reluctant in acting sane when it came to Hanan? Do they know something that we do not know? What caused that delay for 14 days?
Yeah.
We should question the leadership of the minority caucus, question the leadership of his political party. What caused the hesitant? Moving away from that. Now, this has become a mantra that everybody says, the law is the law.
The speaker says the law is the law is the law.
The law
Or
is
the
the
Chief
law.
Justice.
No, the Chief
The Chief
Justice
Justice
ended
said
the law is the law.
The speaker
and the speaker
says
says the law is the law is the law. You understand? Iyoko is an institution that is established by law. At 2010, if I am correct. Now, if you look into the act that establishes Iyoko, it even gives them the power to even freeze assets until a certain period or until you have gone to court to deal with the matter. Bail and bail conditions, aside the Criminal Procedure Code Act 30, all right, Iyoko has his own procedures, which is also backed by the Act 30.
Yeah.
Now, if you read, as my brother was saying, the Section 96 from 2, 3, 4, 5, there is a clear procedure when you are not satisfied with the conditions given for your bail and how to go about it. The court can review it downwards or upwards. In fact, the courts can actually strike it out. As we sit here, we do not know the processes his lawyers have decided to trigger. They are not speaking. Nobody is saying anything. You cannot take the gentleman out of the hands of Iyoko if you do not go through the legal process.
Exactly.
Marching on the streets and going to sit by the roadside and leaving in the evening to your homes to go and eat does not bring him out. And that is one thing that I respected about Apiakubi. He says that, yes, you can do the politics, you can do the theater works, but we need to go through a legal process. I believe that Iyoko is being managed by human beings. Let us assume, let us say you do not want to go to court. I believe leadership would go to meet
Yeah.
the heads of Iyoko and tell them, gentlemen, we are all in this country. We can put our credibility on the line. We can stand in as the leadership of the minority caucus. Do something about the bail condition. Hand the gentleman over to us. Let us go. We would present him whenever he is needed.
Yeah.
We are in a democratic dispensation.
Okay.
I believe that, what is the gentleman who is Raymond Acha?
Yeah.
I do not think that he would not want to meet leadership of the minority.
Maybe they are afraid of what they did to him.
No.
Might it be, my brother, that Raymond is informed, I don't know, informed by what is the standoff between Kisi, Jameng, and Oforiatta? Might it be?
Maybe.
Yeah.
And you see, the institutions do not just issue bail conditions
Yeah.
in vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look at the issues at hand. They look at history, they look at the issues at hand, and then they look at what it can cause, or the risk involved in bailing the person to set these bail conditions.
Okay.
And so going and marching on the streets will not help them.
All right.
Of course, we're in this country when one of these young youth organizers was screaming up and down. What would happen? At the end of the day, there is nothing that would happen.
All right.
You understand me? They should, you see, they should consider the gentleman, consider what he is going through, consider his family, and do the right thing for him.
All right.
If he is out today, it would be to their credit. But what they are doing, they cannot force the hands of the law.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
Okay.
You understand me? They should understand. This I don't know how to interpret this.
Yeah. To it means that. Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to explain myself. You see, what they are doing, people can do worse.
Worse. Yes. Yes.
What they are doing, people can do worse. And the worse you do will not bring nothing.
Exactly.
The law is there. It's clear.
Okay.
I'm not happy to.
Exactly.
I go on social media and I see that Hanan is still. He's a fine gentleman. I don't know what he has done. I'm yet to know. But whatever be the case, he's a fine personality. So they should do what is right to get him out.
Get him out.
right.
That's the objective. Yeah. That should be the objective.
So we'll see how all of that will play out and whether the lawyers will indeed proceed to the court as many have advised that they do. But that is it by way of our discussion this morning. My guests have been Dr. Josiah Koba, former principal lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration, also joined by Ataisa, the MP for Sanerigu. You have any proverbs for us? You know your former.
Yeah, give me one.
We should stick with this one.
I actually didn't.
He has given one.
Okay.
So let me say good morning to our
Oh, God.
We are grateful.
Okay. And Nana is a senior political aide to Alan Kojo Chairman, also joining us.
He wants to be an alumni of his school. He told me.
You know, his school, they don't have wall. Oh.
They don't have wall,
They don't have wall around their school.
Up to now.
No,
You don't have a wall. That's nice.
That is it by way of our discussion this morning. New Day continues. Stay tuned.
Every day, people have money emergencies. Ma, I need my school fees emergency. Mommy, chop money emergency. Emergency. Catch it. I'm your rent emergency. Now, there's a new emergency number in town. Dial star 770 hash for all your money emergencies and chop.
Dial star 770 hash for money emergencies and get easy and quick access to your money, loans, and other banking needs. EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
We asked the children, how many of you brushed this morning? And this little boy, his hand didn't go up. And I said, well, why didn't you brush this morning? He said, my brother was using the toothbrush. If I'd waited for him, I would have been late for school. I'm sorry, I get a bit emotional when it comes to that. To be able to change a child's life, to be able to bring back that confidence about their smile, for me, is phenomenal.
This advert is FDA approved.
Hey, so mommy, who is going to do my wade jollof?
Oh, Kwame. You know our secret, right?
Yeah.
Efia.
Yes, me. I've got it.
Now add your Gino Jollof mix.
The perfect blend of tomatoes, pepper, and fine herbs and spices to ensure a consistent taste every time. And there you have it, your original Ghana Jollof.
Jollof so good.
Jollof so cool. Tasty, yeah.
What is going on here?
Enjoy Jollof the Ghana way. Gino Jollof is made with the perfect blend of tomatoes, pepper, and fine herbs.